switched off and do not cause a distraction during the meeting. We are not expecting a fire alarm tonight, but if one should occur, please follow the officers out of the building to the assembly point on Manchester Road. The meeting is being streamed, and I would like to welcome those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. Finally, let us remember to treat members of the public, elected members and officers with respect throughout the meeting as set out in the Code of Conduct for members. Item number 1 on the agenda, minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of May 2024 from page 7 onwards in the agenda pack. I will move those minutes. Mr. Deputy Mayor, will you second those minutes?
I'll second those minutes, Mr.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
It's not there. Okay.
Item 2 on the agenda, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? None. Thank you. And item number 3 on the agenda, Mayor's communication. I'm pleased to announce that the Mayor's Civic Ball will be held on Saturday, 23rd of November, 2024. That's a Saturday at Burnley Football Club. I will provide more details near the time, but I do hope to welcome all of you there. Thank you. And agenda item 4, public question time.
No questions that are considered to be within the spirit of the Council's right to speak policy have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, items for decision by the Council. Can I point out to members that items for decision by the Council are treated as motions. Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. They may then only speak again on an amendment. When appropriate, Development Control Committee executive minute extracts have been published as the agenda item with recommendations to the Council highlighted in the bold. Item number 5A, constitutional updates and reporting. That's page 25 in your agenda pack. This item is for noting only. Councillor Anwar, will you please move the report?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please second the report? Second the report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Any member? Thank you. The item is noted. Appointments to committees 2024 to 25, the municipal year. Page 35 in your agenda pack. Councillor Anwar, will you please move the report?
I move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please second the report?
Second the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. All those against, please show. Thank you. Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Those recommendations are approved. Item 5C, final revenue outrun position. So this is on February 23rd, 2024, page 37 in your agenda pack. Members will be aware that a supplementary agenda pack was published on the 11th of July, which contained background documents in relation to the digital strategy and waste strategy. This is to assist us to come to an informed decision on recommendation F in the report before us now. The background documents contain exempt information within the meaning of paragraph 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. If any member wishes to refer to any detail contained within these documents at any point in this evening's meeting, they must first move the exclusion of public in accordance with the Council's Constitution, Part 4A, Council Procedure 19, exclusion of the public, and Part 4B, access to information rules 10.4 and 10.5. That would then need it to be seconded and a vote taken to exclude members of the public from the meeting. The live stream will be paused whilst the material is referred to. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the report's recommendations?
Move the recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, will you second that?
I second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just warn Councillor Ishman, I do have one or two questions about this report, but I'm not going to delve into anything that would go into private items, so please be aware of that. From a £60,000 underspend at Q3, we've gone to a £560,000 overspend at Q3 to a £501,000 underspend is some transformation. I think we wish all our finances worked like that. The majority of the £501,000 underspend was totally predictable at Q3, ahead of us being asked to approve the 2024 and 2025 budget. The Treasury Management reports of September and February told us that this was predictable with its commentary on interest rates. The money could have been used in 2024-25 to fund additional expenditure or, as probably the party opposite, to lower bills, but it wasn't given to us. So my first question to the executive member is, why were the estimates so understated at Q3 when only £200,000 of the £766,000 now being reported in interest rate savings were declared? I'm going to move on to reserves. The movement between reserves is substantial, to say the least. Since Q3, according to Appendix 2, but para 10 of the report, which is supposed to be summarising Appendix 2, which seems totally out of kilter with it, but that's another issue I'll come on to in a minute, states that £1.5 million has been taken from the Revenue Support Reserve and £5.7 million, over 90% of the balance, from the Business Rates Volatility Reserve. The cash, predominantly, 4.3 million of it, going to the Regeneration Reserve, with the remainder bolstering strategic reserves. I'm assuming Appendix 2 is correct, as this also appears in the draft accounts on the Council website for public comment. But my first question on this is, can you confirm the reality? Is it para 10 that's correct, or is it Appendix 2? Because they're completely different. My third question is, what is the thinking behind all these major movements between reserves? Because they are really significant. My fourth question, can you confirm that reducing the Business Rates Volatility Reserve by over 90%, 5.7 million down to 570,000, is appropriate to the anticipated risks in the business rate system and that council can be assured that reducing the reserve by this amount is sensible and appropriate. Question 5. When we propose
Town?
use...
Councillor Town, do you want to give Councillor Lishman? Carry on, that's fine.
Sorry, I'm going to get to... It's not questions and answers, it's a speech. I'm trying to get them all in, but anyway. Question 5. When we propose using a modest £47,000 of the business rate volatility reserve in February to improve services, it was rejected out of hand by the administration. What's changed so significantly between the Budget Council in early March and the end of the financial year, just 4 weeks later, to facilitate this major shift in the level of this reserve? And finally, in my questions, can you explain why we need 4.7 million in the regeneration reserve, bearing in mind this is a relatively recently established reserve to support minor projects? 4.7 million is a heck of a lot for minor projects, so why do we need that in there? And finally, I hope this is a friendly amendment, but I am going to put an amendment forward to the first sentence of recommendation A. And I will give you in writing, Mr. Mayor, so you can read it out afterwards. The provisional final position of the Council's revenue account for 23-24 being a net underspend of £501,000, which is to be transferred to the Revenue Support Reserve, £150,000, and the Transformation Reserve, £351,000. So basically splitting it from 501,000 just going into strategic reserves. It is our view on this side of the chamber that rather than the whole underspend of £501,000 being solely ring-fenced for strategic purposes, we should give ourselves the future option to use a portion of this one-off windfall to mitigate future expenditure pressures or fund one-off growth items. Or if you cross the aisle, bills, if you want to look at that. We need to strike a balance between day-to-day services and strategic intent, and that's why I want to proportion this one-off windfall, that it shouldn't just go all into strategic reserves where we can't get it out again. Let's give ourselves some wiggle room that could allow us during this year, for example, to support the bid to make our town centre safer and more welcoming, or improving the maintenance of our overgrown green spaces, or cleaning up our litter-strewn and dog-fouled streets. Let's look if we can use some of that money for a better purpose throughout the year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that took some time, but I thought it was very important that we've made those points. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Townsend. You said you're going to put a motion. Is that in writing now, or do you want Councillor Lishman to respond?
Well, I did propose the motion. I moved the motion that I did present within the speech that I made. So
Right,
I do move
okay.
it, yeah.
So, do you want to answer the questions first? Right, okay. So in that case, can we have a seconder to that motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would second that motion.
Okay. And can we have that in writing? And I would suggest, if that's been... Right, okay. So let me read this out, and then we need to vote on this.
Vote on adjournment. I think we need
Yeah.
adjournment.
Yeah. So the amendment is to change the first sentence of recommendation A, the provisional final position of the council's revenue account for 2023 to 2024 being a net underspent of 501,000, which is to be transferred to the revenue support reserve 150,000 and the transformation reserve 351,000. Can we have a vote on this motion, please?
No.
No?
Do we want to adjourn it?
do we want agenda consideration?
Mr
No,
Mayor,
still no.
could I suggest that we have a short adjournment
That's fine.
and perhaps some copies of the motion so that we can discuss it? Thank you.
Just
Okay,
ask if the-
can we have a seconder to that, please?
Mr Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Just want to vote on it.
Can we get a vote on that, please? So it's been asked that we adjourn the meeting to have a look at this, and it's been seconded. Can we vote on that, please, for those who are in favour of adjournment? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstention? No. So there will be an adjournment for 10 minutes. Is that okay? 15. Adjournment for 15 minutes. and then Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I actually appreciate you putting this amendment in, Mark. I appreciate Councillor Townsend putting this amendment in, especially considering he's moving towards wanting to keep council tax law, which is what he referenced before we had the break just then. But the amendment that I've seen in front of me doesn't even talk about any of that. And in any case, this idea that we have to put money aside now in order to either have a one-off spend or to reduce council tax at next February's budget meeting is not actually accurate. We could move out of reserves next year, and this council could vote to do that. So I don't know whether this is a bit of a politics playing in the council, split the council, show the exec up. I don't know, but to me, I don't see the merit in it, and I hope, if anything comes out of it from what Councillor Townsend said, at the next budget meeting that we have in February of next year, he will support the Conservatives if we do put forward a motion or an amendment to the budget which keeps council tax as low as possible. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also appreciate Councillor Townsend bringing this to our attention. I just want to echo what Councillor McGowan said there. But again, it's another Labour amendment that could be fit on the back of a fag packet. But saying that, I just want to point out, for as long as I've known you, Councillor Townsend, you've been saying that it's been a political decision to underfund this council by a Conservative central government. Obviously now we've got a Labour central government, so I'm hopeful, as are my colleagues, that this Labour government will take away what you've described as a political decision and fund this council appropriately. And I'm very certain that the council leader and the executive will also be looking forward to when you can update us on when we can expect all this extra funding. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A friendly amendment with no notice. It's not quite how I classify a friendly amendment, but then I obviously have a different idea about friends. Right. I'll just begin by attempting to answer the plethora of questions and also respond in relation to the amendment. And I'll begin by just pointing out that we are not the only council that has an underspend because of the nature of the climate in which we're operating this particular time. Hyndburn, for example, where I believe Councillor Townsend at one time had contacts, is £1 million underspend. We haven't quite achieved those heights. Ribble Valley, who've always got more money than we have anyway, have managed 1.7 million underspend. I think they probably had more invested and were able to do more with it. So I'd make that point before we start. Regarding the questions that Councillor Townsend came to me with, and I apologise if I leave any out. Yes, we did know that there was likely to be monies coming via both the element of interest rates being good and also that we delayed taking new borrowing. And that new borrowing element was another part of increasing that underspend. And we didn't take the new borrowing to finance capital expenditure, and we also didn't pay off some of our maturing loans. In fact, yesterday at the team awards that I had the privilege of attending, one of the finance staff, Craig Finn, actually won an award for enterprising for achieving in excess of £420,000 additional income for the council, and well deserved was that award. So yes, we did know, but we didn't know how much. And Councillor Townsend and the rest of you don't need me to tell you that things can change very quickly, and we are in an extremely volatile world at the moment. So I think, yes, we had some idea, but As far as the reserves are concerned, that he implied that movement was substantial. That money going into the Transformation Fund, which is what we want or proposing to this council at this present time, is primarily to fund the waste transfer station that we have had to find the funding for because of the actions of the county council, and also to implement elements of our digital strategy, all of which we all have understood that we need, and certainly the comments that we received via scrutiny were very positive for those initiatives. It's also clear that in our reserves strategy, there is a recommendation that this particular fund should stay at 1.5 million. To implement the amendment that is being suggested, we would not be following our recommendations to ourselves. I think that is something that we need to consider. I think also Councillor Townsend maybe needs to think back to August last year and the decisions that the previous administration made and the recommendations that they made, that I certainly wasn't party to at the time, as I'm sure most of the rest of us that are here weren't either. So, just to summarise to you, we do have money in the regeneration reserve, and if Councillor Townsend wants to come up with some recommendations about all of these things that he's suggesting, then perhaps we could consider those as part of that at another time. But the money that we're suggesting today and how we use it, the recommendation, the amendment that he is proposing, we do not accept and will be voting against. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Lorna?
I'd just like to point out that the green spaces have won an award and they're not overgrown. And I'd also like to point out that there is an operation starting in the town centre soon to address ASB, but it's not just as simple as chucking 50 grand at it. There are real problems, and I'll go into that in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? And Councillor Townsend, as mover of the amendment, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take each of the replies in turn. What I will say is that you'd think that we were almost asking for the world in terms of like this movement in reserves. I just did a quick calculation. Reserves have ballooned in the council. Quite rightly, they needed to grow from 2018-19 when we had some real financial problems in this council, and we had to basically make sure that we had the reserves to sustain the financial viability of this council. But they were about, I think it was about £6 million, the reserves in 2018-19. The report in front of you now shows reserves at 25 million. And what we were asking for here, just to put it into context, is 0.06% of those reserves to be provided more flexibly to allow us to spend on priorities that might come up. Not at next year's budget council, Councillor McGowan, you've misunderstood. This will be in this year's budget. That money will be available at any time for us basically to call on if we so needed. And I know that later on the agenda items, basically, I think in one of the strategic reports, it says that the bid are looking for additional resources to make sure that they can do additional work in the town centre to make it a safer and more welcoming place. And that could have been money that perhaps we could have offered to the bid. So, and going to Councillor Whitaker, I'm really quite pleased. There was an admission at long last that the Conservative government has underfunded this council for 14 years. There, he did it. He put it on the record, and I thank him for that. So, ultimately now, the new government does have a challenge, absolutely. We've been left with an unholy financial mess in terms of the government finances that needs to be sorted out. And I think the King's speech today goes some way forward in terms of showing how we're going to have to grow the economy and get ourselves out of the highest taxation in 70 years and the highest debt that really we've almost ever known. We're at 100% of GDP. And coming to Councillor Lishman, and I really do appreciate you responding to all the questions. I don't think it's completely answered all the concerns that I have in terms of the movements around the reserves. Obviously, you'll have private conversations of projects going on, and I respect that, and why you may need these £4.3 million in a reserve that's just been set up. But you referred to other councils, and that's all well and good about what the underspends are. I don't worry about the £501,000 underspend. I didn't question that. That can be put to good use. What Councillor Lishman didn't say was what Hyndburn did with their £1 million, or what the Ribble Valley did with their £1 million. They may well have all put it into services. They didn't actually say that. So all I'm saying is we could have put some money to one side to spend on some of those services that our residents tell us that they need. Litter-strewn streets, green spaces, and a safer, more welcoming town centre. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And can I just remind members that it's important that we don't interrupt fellow colleagues and that we do listen to them. You will have your chance to, speak throughout the meeting. Thank you. And as the original and mover of the motion, Councillor Lishman, you have the right of reply before we go to a vote. Right, okay. That's fine. It says on my rule book, but if you do not want to wish, that's fine. We will now move to a vote on the amendment, which is, would you like me to read it out again? The provisional final position of the council's revenue account for 2023 to 2024 being a net underspent of 501,000, which is to be transferred to the revenue support reserve 150,000 and transformation reserve 351,000. Can we, all those in favour, can you please show your hands? Thank you. All those against, please can you show your hands? Thank you. Any abstentions? This amendment has not carried, so we will return to the original amendment. Oh, sorry, do apologise. We'll return to the original motion. Any member on the original motion? No? We will go to the vote then. Those in favour of the original motion? Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Right. And item number 5.
carried.
Sorry, this motion is carried.
Recommendations are approved.
Thank you, and those recommendations are approved. I'm getting ahead of my time, yeah. And right, item number 5, Councillor Lishman, would you move the report on the final capital outrun position, page 57 on the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will move the report's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, will you second that?
I second the recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any member?
God knows I go with that as well.
No? All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Those recommendations are approved. Item number 5E, Annual Treasury Management Review of 2023 to 2024 activity, page 67 in the agenda pack. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you move the report's recommendation?
Move the report's recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar, will you second that?
I second the recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any member or members? No, thank you. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? Thank you. Those recommendations are approved. Item number 5, adoption of LLG Members Planning Code of Practice, page 79 in the agenda pack. And LLG is Lawyers in Local Government. And Councillor Solis, will you move the recommendation 4 in the report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As the report says, the LLG Model Planning Code of Good Practice has been reviewed against our own guidance for members involved in development control decisions. And both documents have a good deal in common and no areas of contradiction. The code is very clear on do's and don'ts for members of Development Control Committee and is highly regarded by the UK Supreme Court. Many councils have already incorporated it into their constitutional documents, and I'm happy to move the recommendation from the Development Control Committee, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lorna, will you second that?
I second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? Thank you. That recommendation is approved. And item number 6 on the agenda, reports from committee chairs from page 107 in the agenda pack. Can members note that for this item they should not refer to named individuals or specific addresses when asking questions or making observations. And before we get to that, I just want to say a couple of things with regards to this part of the section of the meeting. And I always find this part of the meeting can be quite strenuous and, and where people jump on and not respect each other. So what I would say here is that, it's a privilege to be a local councillor and it's honour and privilege. And we're here to serve the people of Burnley. And before you ask to stand and speak in the council chamber, please think carefully beforehand what people who elected you are expecting from you, and because they trust in you. Okay? So I would say, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it truthful? Is it necessary? And is it respectful? Only then should we stand in the council chamber and speak up. Thank you. Any questions on the delegated functions such as licensing, planning, should be directed to the relevant committee chair rather than to the executive members. Report 6A, Scrutiny Committee. Councillor McGowan, will you move the report at page 107 in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I move the report.
Any member? Thank you. Item 6B, Audit and Standards Committee. Councillor Whittaker, will you move the report on page 109 in the agenda pack?
I move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a quick question, really. I noticed on the report about the rising complaints from 18 previous year to 26 this year, which on the face of it isn't great, but I just sort of wanted to get a bit of detail in terms of how many of the 18 and how many of the 26 were complaints that were upheld compared to complaints that were perhaps vexatious, because that is, you know, more relevant in a way in terms of the standards that our members are applying themselves. Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. And Councillor Whittaker, would you want to respond?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, the report is on the council website, so you could look at that. What I can confirm is that the allegations made were thoroughly investigated, and all the outcomes of that are on the council website. You can see that already. It's good that this council has adopted the procedure it has done to investigate these particular incidents, and I'm pleased that the council is dealing with them correctly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other member? Thank you. Item 6C, Licensing Committee. Councillor Kelly, will you move the report on page 111 in the agenda pack?
Happy to move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any members or members? No? Thank you. Agenda item 6D, Development Control. Councillor Solis, will you move the report at page 113 in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move my report.
Thank you. Any members or member? No? Thank you. Right. Item 7 on the agenda, Strategic Plan and Progress Reports. From page 115 in the agenda pack. Again, can I ask members, please note that for this item, they should not refer to named individuals or specific addresses when asking questions or making observations. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report, and the executive member will respond to a number of questions. The same procedure will be followed for observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly quote the page number and reference and allow time for the executive member and everyone else to find it in their agenda packs. Also, will members please be concise with their questions and observations? Councillor Anwar, will you move your report at pages 116 to 117 in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will move my report, but just in doing so, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I think one of the first things that's on the report itself, it speaks about obviously the County Combined Authority, and obviously with the change in government and where that the County Combined Authority was in the process, that has been paused. So as the report says, I shall report back once Lancashire leaders have met and we've got further developments on that. But I do want to say that one thing that I am actually pleased about as part of the King's speech today is that actually one thing that's come out from that is that the government is looking to make devolution much, much easier. So that's a development that already that we're hearing. And I think all of us in this chamber, all of us said that, you know, at the time, and that has always been my position, that actually with the County Combined Authority, in terms of the deal that was on offer, that was the only deal on the table, which is why we went for that. But if what is coming out of government and what we've heard with the King's speech today is that actually there's something better on the table, and obviously as and when that develops, we'll be able to report back on that. But I would like to see the best possible deal that we can get, one for Lancashire, but particularly for Burnley. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out there. The other thing, just again, I just want to briefly mention, just in terms of the long-term plan for towns, I just want to thank all of our officers, but also all of our partners who have worked really, really hard to ensure that we can work towards meeting the deadline for submitting a plan for the 1st of August. Lots and lots of work has gone on in the background, and I'm grateful to all the work that officers, but in particular, all of our partners have done to ensure that we're well on the way with that. I do know that in other areas, there have been struggles, and I'm glad to say that in terms of the way that we've progressed with that has been absolutely fantastic. And then just finally, just wanted to say with regards to the Active Burnley Awards, I was really proud to see actually and be a part of the celebrations where we actually celebrated some of the work that's gone on around the family hubs, and to see colleagues being awarded for the work that is going on to tackle issues in our local communities through the Burnley Together and the family hubs was absolutely fantastic to see. And then also from a personal point of view, it was also brilliant to see Daneshouse Football Club awarded Club of the Year for the Girls Initiative, and that's something that came off the back of the Lionesses winning the Euros, and you know that was something that actually promoted girls football in our local communities, particularly for developing football in Daneshouse and in Stonyholm, and to be awarded that award was absolutely fantastic. And I think it also sends out that message about actually promoting opportunities for all of our communities, but particularly for women and girls, and the fact that the Lionesses are serving as those really positive role models for all of our communities. So I move my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. And I'd echo the Burnley Active Awards. There's a lot of local heroes there that do a lot of stuff voluntarily, and it's a pinnacle of those people who do that. And, and I echo the comments that you've made with regards to people winning and being awarded and recognised for their work. And any questions for Councillor Anwar? Sorry, Councillor Lorna.
I'd just like to echo, I was in a meeting with Burnley Leisure on Monday, and they've told me that
Councillor Lorna, if you could point out the page number.
Oh, no, sorry, it was just an observation.
No, we're taking questions. Any questions, please? Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it won't surprise you, it's page 116, PR1, the County Combined Authority, and I welcome Councillor Anwar's comments that he's just made. But I just need to refer back to where we currently are. This council's stated position by resolution is to support the establishment and push for a county combined authority as recommended by the upper tier councils of Lancashire. And my understanding is that that position of the upper tier councils hasn't changed. Bearing this in mind, is it the council leader's position that this pause in the establishment of a Lancashire CCA is welcome? And if so, does he want to present another resolution to this council which reflects the changed situation and how we might want to proceed from here? Because we seem to be in a strange situation at this moment in terms of the council leader's position is that he has to go and support basically a county combined authority as presented by the upper tier councils. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And would you take another question as well? Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the same page that Mark's just been referring to there. I weren't going to mention it, but seeing as it has been mentioned, so page 117, 116, sorry, about the combined county authority. I think it's clear to us all that this current deal, as we voted on in the council, is dead in the water. The primary legislation didn't get passed. It's a goner. So I am sure that something new is going to come up to answer the points of Councillor Townsend there. I would just say that as a council, with this change now, we need to be very wary of what comes. I do remember a few years ago, before as I was elected onto this council, that there were proposals put forward by the then Labour group to go into an East Lancashire unitary, which would have closed this town hall down and moved us to Blackburn. I know a lot of residents was against that at the time, and I'm not necessarily sure whether now is the time, as Councillor Townsend says, to put down a firm proposal, but rather wait as the council leaders suggested and see what's put forward by the government before we make any action. So my question to the council leader would be, can he keep us updated as soon as he knows, so that we can make them decisions as and when we've got the full information? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anwar. If you want to respond to them two questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just in response, I'll take the question from Councillor Townsend first. I think, obviously, in terms of the resolution that was passed through this council, in terms of supporting the upper tiers with the county combined authority, that was the position we were in. But what's happened is we've had a change in government, and it's clear, and Councillor McGowan again has just alluded to that, is that deal potentially is dead in the water. But what is really interesting is actually what's been said, as I said before, in the King's speech, that and correspondence that we've had from the Deputy Prime Minister as well, saying that actually devolution will be made easier. It'll be easier for local councils, local leaders, but also for counties to have those devolved powers. So it's difficult for us to commit to anything at this moment in time until we know actually the levels of details of what any offer or what any deals might look like, or what the conversations are and how they look. But I think from my own personal view has always been that in terms of I would be open to getting the best deal for Lancashire, getting the best deal for Burnley, whether that's in the form of a mayoral combined authority, or whether it's in the form of a combined authority without an elected mayor, without local government reorganisation. But one thing that I will be clear on is that, again, my view is, my red line is that would not want to go down the route of having an East Lancashire unitary authority that would then become one of the poorest in the country, but also would be run from Blackburn, and that for me would be a red line for me. And I think we can't, in terms of moving a resolution, I think what we've got to do is wait to see what comes back from government and what will be the offer. And there's not been any clarity on what's going to happen with the Lancashire CCA yet. So until we know anything further, we'll see what comes of that. In answer to Councillor McGowan's question, yes, absolutely. As soon as I know more, whether that's from government, from the Deputy Prime Minister or ministers, or whether that's via Lancashire leaders meetings, which will reconvene in September, I will share that information with all members in this chamber. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Any other member on questions? No? Thank you. Any observations for Councillor Anwar? I've got Councillor Townsend and then Councillor Lorna.
Again, it's page 116, PR1 CCA. I just worry about some of the words that are being bandied around, because this is moving quickly from what I've read and what I've seen over the last couple of days. And I think the words used were the current CCA is potentially dead, but it's not dead. And the issue we've got is the Deputy Prime Minister wrote to all local leaders yesterday. I don't know if our leader got one of those letters or not, but it certainly went to all upper tier authorities, and basically it was asking for proposals to be submitted for a first wave of devolution by the end of September. Now, this council doesn't meet again until September to state its position. So if we don't get our act together and give our leader a mandate on what he's supposed to be negotiating around Lancashire, he's basically at the moment supporting the upper tier authorities to impose the CCA deal that I don't think, well, certainly on this side of the chamber, we didn't want it. I know the rest of you all did want it in January. I'm not sure what your positions are currently, but you know, we are in a fast-moving situation where things have got to be decided quickly. And if we're just going to sit on our hands and do nothing, then I think that is a really bad place that we need to be. And don't forget, the residents of this town rejected the CCA deal through the consultation. Overwhelmingly rejected it. So I would say that this council needs to get in step with where the residents are in saying that that CCA deal should be dead and we should be looking for something better and giving our council leader a mandate to deliver something that's meaningful and basically is going to deliver the best for the residents of this town. This county has prevaricated for too long. And I know people can say I've been part of that problem because I've been leader of the council and things like that. But ultimately, this is moving quickly now. And there's going to be a council of the nations and the regions for those who go for the highest deals, where all the metro mayors, we probably all saw them last week outside Downing Street having selfies and things like that. They were sat at the Prime Minister's table. That's where we need Lancashire to be. And we're not. And unless we get our act together and basically say to our leader that this is our voice from Burnley, we want you to go and push that in Lancashire, let's get ourselves on that council of the nations and regions and make sure that Lancashire isn't left behind again with the second-rate deal that's currently on offer. Now, I would suggest if we're not going to have a resolution tonight, we need a resolution long before September so the council leader can go and say something meaningful with the backing of this council to his fellow council leaders in Lancashire. Because at the moment, he has no mandate to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Lorna?
Yeah, it was just an observation. Councillor Barton asked me a while ago about female women.
Lorna, if you could do the page number. And
Oh, I thought it was an observation.
Yeah.
On spot.
Same.
Oh, I can't remember.
Same
sorry.
process, Councillor Lorna.
It was to do with
It'd be
50-50.
page 117, I think.
Yeah, it was to do with the
PE1.
sport is now 50-50 with Burnley Leisure almost between men and women. And Paddy are putting on some really good events for women only. And Burnley Leisure were really happy with that. So I just wanted to put that forward because Councillor Barton asked me a while ago. So that was that.
And Councillor Anwar, would you want to respond to those?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in response to that, I understand what Councillor Townsend is saying in terms of things are moving fast, and I will say it again. What's come out from the King's speech is that the government is saying they're going to make devolution easier. They're going to make it easier for us to move towards getting a better deal for whether that's for Burnley or for Lancashire. But the details aren't out yet. So for us to stand here in this chamber today and say we're going to pass a resolution without any detail coming from government just does not make sense. So we've got to wait until that information comes through. Once we've got the level of detail, and then we can move ahead with that. And as I said, Lancashire leaders have not yet met. So once the upper tiers have got that information and they've been told, well, actually, this is not the way forward, we can move with that from there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other observations? No. Can I just point out on this note, in terms of meetings and so on, I think it's an important issue for everybody with regards to this combined authority. And I'm happy to accommodate another meeting to discuss this important issue if members wish for that to happen. Thank you. And Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please move your report at pages 118 to 121 in the agenda pack?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I will move those. I won't speak for quite as long as Councillor Anwar, but what I will say is that, as I said, I went to the team awards yesterday and we had a brief overview of the staff survey. I do hope you'll all take the time to have an opportunity to look at it when it's available. Importantly, I'd like to thank you all as well, because one of the things that comes out from that survey is how much our staff like working for us. And that means that you're all polite and kind to them when you interact with them. And I think that's an extremely important thing for councillors to do. So thank you. The other thing I would say is that we've got the Silver Award with regard to the climate change. We are the first in Lancashire. We are the 5th in the country. So give yourselves a pat on the back, but the work still goes on. And most importantly, the website is up and running. So we have a website called Our Journey to Net Zero. Lots of useful hints and tips on it, and I would advise you all to take the time to have a look at it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Calling people by their first name, so do please bear with me. Button.
Sorry.
Thank you. This is page 121, PL5, the carbon literacy. I'm delighted that we have achieved silver and we are moving on to gold. Anyone who knows me knows I love training. I've never been invited to participate in this training yet, and we have a lot of new councillors in the room with us as well. Can you give us any indication of when that offer will be rolled out to those of us who haven't yet had the opportunity to take part? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Lishman? No? It's all yours, Councillor Lishman.
Memory doesn't serve me well. I know we are organising another round, and I know I've read about it, and I'm looking at Rob because I've totally forgotten what it was. But yes, we will certainly be doing it, and we will certainly make sure that's available to all the new councillors as well. I found it incredibly useful. I know that you will as well, and I know that you did too. And I would hope that all the councillors that we've got do undertake the training. So I will look at Rob and say, please make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Any observations for Councillor Lishman? No? Thank you very much. Councillor Baker, will you please move your report at pages 112 to 124 on the agenda back?
I'm going for pages 122 to 124, Mr Mayor. I'm hoping 121 was my colleague next to me, but I do move the report. I'm willing to take any questions. Thank you.
Any members? Councillor Barton, and then I've got Councillor Whitaker, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. This is page 122, PL1. FCC have recently completed the purchase of Abasa UK. Now, these are an organisation I know nothing about, and the website is quite vague. Now that we have a contractual relationship, will there be a presentation to councillors about the impact it'll have on Liberata in terms of their culture and working practices?
Do you take the other questions as well? Yeah, Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is PL1, page 122, regarding pest control. Rat baiting itself has been taking part throughout the borough. I'd just like to know, it's given a couple of locations, but can you tell me what kind of poisoning we've been using and when have those baits been placed out, please? When have those baits been placed out, the timescales? Yeah, there is a reason for the question. All right, thank you.
Do you want to take another one, Councillor Baker? Mr.
I
Deputy
know
Mayor,
the
you'll have to
answers.
wait.
don't want to, I like to quit while I'm ahead. I'm a bit confused with Councillor Barton. I'm not sure what the effect of FCC will be on Liberator, because they're just basically taking over the contract from Abasa and everything continues as before. Abasa, oh, right. To us, nothing. It's just a financial controller change. Everything continues as before. They're meeting all the aspects and the contractual aspects to do that. And most people, in fact, all of us, I should think, won't see any difference at all. It should just continue as before. But proof's in the pudding, as always with these things. But no, it shouldn't make any difference this time. Next time it comes up for renewal, we might notice some differences. Phew. He gave me advance warning as well. That's the trouble. Bear with me 1 minute. It was very good, a very friendly approach to it. The word he's looking for, if I get my glasses on as well, Mr. Mayor, sorry about this. He says it's moved. Where's he gone? Rat poison, right. The rodenticide used is a brand name called Saccharat. Very novel. Saccharat. And its main component is an ingredient called a chemical compound called brodifacoum as the active ingredient. Right, but regarding to what he was asking behind the question, baiting, he was asking me what certain areas were before, and I can confirm that we were looking mainly at Townley Park, where we've had a couple of problems recently. Basically, baiting took place during April 2023, when secure bait stations were located around the car park area. However, these were removed when treatment was complete, and dogs will be unable to access these bait stations because they're protected. Hopefully that answers all your questions. You don't ask me to repeat the name of it again, or give you the chemical compound for it to be even worse. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I'm pretty impressed with your response to Councillor Whittaker's question. Mr. Deputy Mayor, you had a question.
Page 122, environmental enforcement. I was walking around the Florence Street, Phillips Street, Bush Street area a couple of weeks back, and the weeds, the street weeds in the area were quite overgrown. They have been, I've rang them in, through this little streets clean up. My question basically is, can we ensure that weeding is done in that area and the area of Burnley, because it was quite overgrown with weeds in the Florence Street area?
Any more, Mr. Mayor? Is that it? Can do one
Any more questions for
Give me time to think.
Councillor Baker? Councillor Ishtiaq.
Raised many years ago. Page number, I left my glasses, so what does that say? 1, 2, 3, and PL1, I think it'd be. That is, with regards to the penalties for dog fouling and stuff, we had a discussion some time ago that this service would be extended to look at some of the litter that's been disposed in our communities. You know, who are the contractors that are looking at this?
Oh, the penalty notice.
Yeah, for we have in towns with regards to the Kingdom, that's it. Kingdom, we were looking at expanding their remits outside the town, so rather than focusing on just people dropping cigarettes out in the community. So could you update us, how are we doing with that, and how are we monitoring? Because in our ward, we kind of have a major issue where people are, dropping, rubbish and stuff, and other than just cigarette ends.
No,
Any more questions for Councillor Baker?
No.
No?
Yeah, two's enough then. Going back to the weed killing one, this, I won't say it winds me up, but it does wind me up as well. However, I've got my colleague sat next to me that introduced the ban on the weed killer things that we've used traditionally in the past. And to be fair, the methods we're using at the moment are not as effective as glycophosphates, I think they call from memory, or something on those lines. We are searching around with other councils for the best things to use on the products to use on it, because one or two come up, but it's an ongoing thing. We don't have the same amount of staff as we used to do, where you could only go around once every 3 months and that was it with the guy. We have to go around more frequently, and it's just not happening at the moment unless we get superior funding. Oh, and we're doing a working group on it. My colleague tells me he's green. That's the thing. He knows all these answers for this. Sorry, the last one, fly tipping, back to you. I've no idea how it's stretching out from the centre at the moment, but I'll look into where we're up to with that, because we talked about it. It is the most distressing thing in my life, is the not just fly tipping, but litter dropping and everything in Burnley. It's been prone to it all my life, and I look back 60, 70 years about keep Burnley tidy and things, and it's had little effect. I was in Berlin a few months ago, and I counted the number of cigarette ends, and I got to about 7, possibly 8, in a mile and a half of walking. And then I go outside the big window, and I count 7 or 8 every quarter of an inch. It's terrible. But whether we put it back to trying to get the pubs and things like that, because they did have something at one point that they could be forced to contribute to the payment of cleaning up after themselves, and whether the council is minded to do that. I know 1 or 2 of my colleagues have said we want to start invoking charges for fly tipping, but the question is, at the end of the day, it's all very well issuing fines, but if the people can't pay them, then it has little effect on them. I don't know where the answer lies. It's not with fines. It's right from a very early age instituting pride into the town. And that's the thing that we've got to do. But having said that, it's not just Burnley. It tends to be the whole of the UK that seems to lack pride in the towns, and litter just gets strewn everywhere. But the council officers are looking at it. We will improve, and we'll get the people improved. But I can't, guarantee an answer straight away, because obviously as the circle expands, the area expands as the square. So there's even, you're down to a quarter of the people if you double the size of the town centre going round. But we will move on that with Kingdom or the appropriate people in time. I don't think you can come back again.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Any other questions for Councillor Baker? No? I'm going to move on to observations. Any observations? Councillor Whitaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 123, PL1. It's regarding fixed penalties for dog fouling, etc. I just want to say that this is great that we're actually issuing these. It's been brought up amongst other things as well. But if I could just ask the member if he'd be willing to meet with me at a later date if I could just ask the member if he'd be willing to meet with me at a later date to discuss a certain area in my ward where I've had a lot of complaints from, and I'm hopeful in this observation that we'd be able to do something about it. That's the first one. And the second one is just about the antisocial behaviour in the town centre. I think we should congratulate ourselves and the police for a reduction of 60% in the town centre. I don't know if this is a historic thing or not, but I think we're actually making the right moves forward. As we all know, we've discussed antisocial behaviour in our town centre on a number of occasions, and I'm pleased to see that there's been a 60% reduction from April this year. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Would you like to take others? Yeah. I've got Councillor Graham and Councillor Harbour, and then Councillor Ishtiaq, if you want to make that observation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 122, PL1. I find it quite astonishing that we can hear the exec member responsible for this, both talking Burnley down and saying that he has no idea about what to do. about the problems of littering and dog fouling and fag ends and so on and so forth. People of Burnley who might be watching this on YouTube are looking to him to give the answers and to the executive to give the answers on this. Thank you.
You going to take, yeah?
Thank you, Councillor Graham, for that. I hear what you're saying. It's interesting because Labour's been in charge of this town for hundreds of years, it seems to me, and we've still got litter. So you failed miserably when you were in charge. And I'm not going to criticise you for that because it's not up to me to cure litter. It's me to get the team to pick it up after it's happened and try and prevent it. But it needs all of us acting together to get the people of Burnley taking some pride in the town. You know, you can't just say, oh, it's the executive's fault. I won't say it's Labour's fault, but it is Labour. But it's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. It's your fault. It's my fault. If I throw litter out of my car window, it's disgusting. You know, I've done it in the past. It would be hypocritical to say I've never thrown anything on the floor when I was a child or growing up or anything. But it's hard, and you need to go somewhere else, I think, to see how good they are with it. If you go to Singapore, I think it is, there's no, well, they even banned chewing gum, so there is no chewing gum on the floor. But it's just the pride that people take in the town, and we've got to instill that in them. And it's not from the top down be fines. That's one way of doing it, but it's a poor way of doing it because we haven't got enough people, as my colleague points out here, to go around every area of the town watching people drop stuff and then acting against it. We've got to stop it happening and think, I'm throwing that. Oh, if I throw that, what happens? If it rots, fair enough. But if it doesn't rot and it's got to be picked up, somebody's got to pay for picking it up. It's back to me. And it's my thing, and I'm going to change. I'm going to make my children change, and so on. And that's what we need to be doing, Councillor. I don't blame you for your bit when you were in charge of it, because it's not something. If I had a magic wand, I'd wave it and say, "Oh, it's all gone away now," and we'll fly tip everybody. I think we can charge several hundreds of pounds now, or thousands of pounds for this. But if they haven't got the money to pay for it, what do? They go to court. And the magistrates say, oh, well, I'll give you time to pay. You can pay it £1 a week, this £4,000 fine. Then they pay it for 3 weeks and they don't bother. And it's madness. That's not the answer. It's a short-term answer and it makes us feel better in this council, perhaps we're doing something. But we've got to crack the root problem. And that's where we all need to work together to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I've got Councillor Harbour and Councillor, no, just Councillor Harbour. You didn't respond to, no, you didn't want to, no. Right, okay, not to worry. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's PL1, page 122, and I'm not here tonight to blame Councillor Baker for the problems which have just been highlighted. But the fact is, in his response to the question, he actually blamed the Greens. He blamed the Green Party for changing the chemicals of the way we spray weeds, etc. He also mentioned about how many times were actually sprayed throughout the year. And he did say then that we don't do that now because we haven't got the staff to do it. Earlier at this meeting and at previous meetings, we put forward the idea of extra resources into green spaces to accommodate problems like we have now, and we turned it down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harbour. And any other observations? No? Would you like to respond, Councillor? Okay.
No, don't respond. Been advised not to. But no, quite agree with John. We look at these things all the time, continuous review of them, John. And as I say, we're looking at other councils, see if they've got a better product that we don't need to use as frequently, so we can save a bit of money that way. And at the same time, if we halve the frequency, we could double the number of streets we cover. It's as simple as that. It's just finding the best product. I certainly wasn't blaming my Green colleague, because my Green colleague points out problems with the thing, that it's killing bees and things like that, which is also, well, probably even more bad than anything else. If we kill the bees, the rest of us die off. But it's very difficult, John, trying to get a balance right. especially when you make a major change for something that works perfectly, but at the same time, for us perfectly, but kills everything else off in the meantime, and it's just not the way.
Thank you. And is there any other observations for Councillor Baker? No? No. And thank you, Councillor Baker. I would like to make an observation. PL1 and page 122, and I want to thank the council officers at Street Scene and Zoe Jackson and Alex for coming out to Danes House and Stonyham and doing an education project around fly tipping and around pest control and so on. So the council officers are very good. And they did send out an email, I think it was last week. I would encourage colleagues to take up that email and to go out with them on the streets and speak to residents. I think it's a good idea. Educating our residents is a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move my report, and in doing so, just would like to add a few comments and highlight some items. Awards, 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 good news stories, and amazing work being done by the Coalition of Calm and Cooperation. I think this executive report for the development and growth portfolio highlights some of the good news stories that we've had, and also some of the brilliant work that is being done by officers at this town hall. I have to say all of the officers do exemplary work, but as being part of this portfolio, for members who don't know, I'm on my third portfolio in 12 months. And I have to say, the officers that work around everything from the intricacies of businesses and development and planning, they have done some sterling work on this. I would like to mention Padiham Town Hall. Padiham Town Hall has in May and June had Painting Padiham and Padiham on Parade, which is amazing for our borough. And we've had some amazing events, drawing in hundreds of thousands of visitors there. I would also like, after I was mentioning earlier about the awards, there was also the Business Awards, which we had the opportunity of meeting the lovely Mr. Mayor at. And that was an amazing, phenomenal night. If you have not seen the pictures, you must go on burnley.co.uk and you'll also see some pictures of me. On the 11th of July, there was the barbecue event held for the winners and for the judges, and it was a wonderful get-together where everybody could let their hair down, and basically the best of Burnley was there. They were showing why we are being put on the map. We are now a town, I am very proud to say, that is innovative and it's a choice for businesses. So that is something to be proud of. I would like to finish by saying, because I'm pretty sure it will come up, Town to Turf. You may have seen there's been quite good work being done there. It's nearly finished. I think end of July is when it is due to be finished. So although it would not be good conduct for a round of applause, I'm sure we're all cheering inside. And I think, to be honest with you, I mean, I could go on. You've all had a chance to read the report. It is good news. There has been some brilliant stuff done, and long may it continue. I'm happy to take any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. And any members for question? Councillor Barton and Councillor Haig and Councillor Maguire.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Page 132, PR6, Universal Credit Claimants. The claimant count rose to 6.4% in May. The report doesn't give us any context in terms of what it has gone up from. And am I also correct in thinking that benefit changes mean that people are being moved over to universal credit now from previous benefits? So we should be expecting to see the rise anyway. So also, what do we predict the amount is going to go up to based on the evidence that we have?
And Councillor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same point, so page 132, PR6 universal credit claimant changes. Do we have that data aggregated down any further? Do we know how many of those are in work claimants, etc.? Thank you.
Would you take another question? Or, yeah, and yeah, sorry? Yeah, Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PR4, page 130. Mine's on a completely separate topic to what's been raised. I just wanted a little bit of help on this. I spoke at full council earlier this year about the Gleeson site in Hapton and what I'm finding really challenging to just get dog bins effectively. Residents down on Grimshaw Road in particular are speaking about dog bins, and they've spoken about this for 2 years with me. Now, I know there's an issue with the land basically needing to move over to LCC for adoption. I have chased the Highways Department to LCC, but in the last exec report, it said that that site is now complete and that adoption process is taking place. Can I just ask if Councillor Khan would assist me in getting some answers on LCC to get this adoption sorted so that we can finally just get what is a very simple thing, just getting a dog bin outside residential properties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to respond to Councillor Barton and Councillor Hay together, since it's the same thing on P12. Unfortunately, at this time on, what day are we on, Wednesday? Wednesday night, I don't have that information, but I do have your email addresses. So I propose that I stay in contact with you and find that information out for you, and then we can liaise. In response to Councillor McGowan, I'm actually really glad that you've asked this question. One of the reasons that I love your question is because it gives me the opportunity to thank my predecessor, who's done the majority of the hard work on this portfolio that I've now moved nice and easily into. And I do remember that you had spoke about it previously. I would love to work with yourself, Councillor McGowan, and I look forward to making some progress on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any more questions for Councillor Khan? Any observations? I've got Councillor Harbour, Councillor Lewis, and then Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just get my iPad working again properly. My apologies. And it's refusing to work. Anyway, it was page 125, PR3. I think it's about support. Sorry, page. Struggling with this now. Anyway, it's about the report you gave about all the exciting developments and things what's been happening in the town. And I think Councillor Khan quite rightly thanked our officers for their input in that. But I'm just going on to the page where it talks about the events in Padiham, the Padiham on Parade and painting Padiham. And I'm sure it was an oversight on Councillor Khan's part, but what we have to remember is that those two major events were basically run by volunteers. They had support from the council, and we're grateful for that support. But I think it would be nice to acknowledge the volunteers who played a massive part in producing those events, and Padiham Town Council, who also sponsored the event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harbour. I've got Councillor Lewis and then Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Harbour has just made the point that I was going to make.
Thank you. Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PR2, page 126. It's just an observation. I just wanted to put on record, my congratulations to the Hapton Company Miro Products for winning Best Small Business at the Burnley Business Awards. Very good. I know Ryan quite well, and I think he's really flying the flag for Hapton, and I just wanted to congratulate him on record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Khan, kind of response to those?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really, really appreciate that, Councillor Harbour and Councillor Lewis. You are quite right. The volunteers and the volunteering sector can be overlooked. And I think in my haste to be so excited about all of the good news, that's a misfortunate hindsight on my behalf. I don't think it makes you less of a person to acknowledge when you have missed something out or forgotten about it. So I hope it won't be held against me. But I would love to echo what you're saying. You are quite right. Them volunteers, the work that they do, their work is paramount. And any support that the council and the officers have given them is obviously welcomed by them, but it's all about their hard work and their effort. And I would like to go on record to congratulate and thank them on behalf of Burnley Borough Council and the Town Council. Councillor McGowan, regarding the best small business, yes, you're quite right, and I would also like to echo my congratulations to them and to all of the business award winners, the finalists and those that are obviously won in the end. In my eyes, they're all winners, so well done to everybody. Thank you.
Any other observations of Councillor Khan? No? And moving on to housing, health and culture, Councillor Lorna, will you please move your report at pages 133 to 140 in the agenda pack?
I move my report. And in doing so, would like to just make a few comments. I sometimes feel as I've got one arm tied behind my back because health is obviously run from Preston, and housing, the problems we have in Burnley will need probably around £100 million worth of investment over 10 years. I'll start with health. So what I'm trying to do with health is not beg for money, but it's put ideas forward to the ICB. I'm looking at doing pilots across the town. Some of our problems are falls prevention and frailty, because we have an ageing population here. And I'm delighted to say that we will hopefully be having a pilot starting in Burnley West, which is our most serious area of where older people who fall go into A&E, starting very soon, and that will take the pressure, hopefully, off A&E and put people straight into the ward that they're supposed to be going in. I've also noticed that we've got a 9-month waiting list for mental health, and I've been talking with Downtown, and they've confirmed this, and cases are going up, and I've asked my councillor colleague, hopefully Councillor Green, and I will ask the Conservative group to help me get in contact with them after this meeting, to come over to Burnley and try and come up with some ingenious solutions of how we can work on this waiting list. In terms of housing, I've seen some quite upsetting things on just pictures, and what I've said to officers, and they are working extremely hard, is to get our plans in place for if some government money does come from the new government, and we will be ready and waiting to improve Burnley's housing, because I know that is a really big issue for everyone. So yeah, thanks, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Right, yeah, I've got quite a few here. I've got Councillor Barton, Councillor Birtwistle, Councillor Whitaker, Councillor McGowan, and then Councillor Haig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lorna, your portfolio is always most of interest to me, so I've got a couple of questions. Page 133, PE3, of the 658 inquiries regarding homelessness, do we know how many are coming in from other local authorities? And my second question is page 136, PL4. You championed girls' sport earlier on, as did Councillor Anwar. How will we ensure that girls' football and other girls' sports gets equality of access in the newly refurbished pitch areas?
Thank you, Councillor Barton. I don't have those figures of the first question, so I'll have your email address and I'll get back to you. And secondly, on the second question, I will talk with council officers in Burnley Leisure and get back to you as well. Thank you for the question.
Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's page 135, PL3. I was delighted to hear Councillor Lorna say that he understands the serious housing situations we have in Burnley, and I'm interested to hear from him that they're looking at getting some government money. Could I ask him where he's up to date, what the up-to-date position is with a serious bid to government to get in the region of 100 million over 10 years to try to relieve the desperate situation we have with some of the houses that we have in Burnley. Have we made the bid? Are we working on a bid? Can you give me an up-to-date position where we're up to?
Thank you, Councillor Birtwistle. Yes, we are working on it, and I will keep you informed and I will email you as soon as I have an update on it. But it was at the front of my mind as soon as the election was over and called.
Thank you. And Councillor Whitaker?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is page 135, PL3, regarding the Empty Homes programme. I'm glad, obviously, my question to Councillor Lorne, I'm glad this is happening. I have a particular property in my ward. I believe that it is going to be compulsory purchase. I don't want to give the address away. Would he be able to provide me with the details of what the executive has decided upon from its last meeting regarding those properties? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I would welcome meeting with you in the ward and going through it and seeing some of it, if that's okay, and contacting you after the meeting.
Thank you. And Councillor McGowan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is PL4, page 136. I just want to say thanks for the recognition about the pump track that we've got in Hapton. The Parish Council have played a great part in that, and also the Lancashire Environment Fund who put up this 40,000 with the bid that I put in for that. There were an open day 2 weeks ago which were well attended. Weather were a bit poor, but yeah, we're really good. I got two questions really. The first is building on the improvements that we've made on Hapton Rec. We're now looking at trying to get some equipment for toddlers and small children around the sandpit. Can we check the Queen's Park garages to see if there's any old equipment that could be refitted and brought over to Hapton? And then secondly, I've spoken about Hapton, but also in Padiham, as members of this council know, I've been speaking about 3G football pitch provision for a while now, and the general election's over. I know that this is a big project. It's not £40,000. You're talking closer to £1 million. But there's feasibility studies which we've seen been put forward. Now the general election's over, can we get cracking with it, and can I meet with the exec member after in the next few days to see what we can do and how quick it's going to be? Because I think a lot of the football players in these leagues are just council talk of it is boring. They just want to see the pictures, and anything that I can do to get that over the line, I will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Simon Goff is unfortunately on holiday till the 22nd or next week, but after that and after we come, definitely we'll come to Hapton and we'll make a meeting with you to discuss the football pitches. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Haig?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have two questions. Neither should be a surprise to Councillor Lorna, but the first one is page 133, PE3, similar to Councillor Barton's comment. The 658 inquiries around homelessness that are referred to. Just wondering if that data aggregates down any further. As a new councillor, I'm not sure if that's a typical number for that period. Is that a trend? And then my second question is on page 136, PL4, in relation to the playing pitches and outdoor sports strategy. Lockyer Avenue sport pitch improvements. I've had a number of complaints from residents in Ghana about the boundary of that and brambles growing into their gardens and making them dangerous. They have been told that those responsible for the site had lost the key to the security fence and can't fix that. I've chased it with officers, but I was wondering if, as part of this work, will that be sorted for residents? Thank you.
I have a response for the second part. We have put together a plan to spend some time in autumn winter to cut back as much as we can on the playing field side of the fence, which will then allow us to see better the problems on the other side of the fence and work out how we can gain access and do any subsequent work. We will also organise some weed spraying in 2025 on the areas we can access. We've explained the situation and plan of action to residents that have contacted us, and they seem happy with the plans but understand the difficulty with access because the fence is built with a gap for some reason. We will work with AFC Wolves, who now own the lease for playing fields, as they will probably have to organise future works in coordination with the council after this year's work. So the first part of your question, I contacted the prison estate because I'm actually concerned that if we do, obviously some of the prisoners may get released early, and the number being talked about is 10% for Burnley, but they cannot confirm this. And I was talking to Elaine Seed, who's the head of East Lancashire Probation Delivery Unit, and we're going to have to talk, the government are going to have to tell us and the MP what's going to happen and brief us, because if there are prisoners released, we simply don't have enough properties at the moment to house those people. So in terms of your question about homelessness, I've talked to Downtown, and obviously it's the cost of living crisis has really bitten. We haven't got exact numbers, but because some people don't call themselves homeless if they're sofa surfing and things like that, but I've talked to them at length, and they're keeping me informed if they've got any other data other than cost of living crisis of why people are presenting as homeless. I hope that helps.
And thank you. I've got Councillor Ishtiaq and then Councillor, no, we're still on questions. Okay. Any questions for Councillor Lorna? Mr Deputy Mayor.
Page 137, PL4, regarding Hodgsworth Park. I do welcome the improvements. However, I'm sorry if it is in your portfolio or it could be someone else's, and it does concern the residents of Trinity, where the park is, Roanoke House and Coldclough. I'm talking about there have been cases of antisocial behaviour on that park regarding water by using, etc. So what is the council doing, working with the police, etc., to combat antisocial behaviour on the park?
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I'll again talk with Simon and get back to you with the response. Thanks.
I've got Councillor Broughton with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. PE4, page 140, about Downtown. I did send you an email earlier in the week about it, so I don't know if you've got the figures for me or not. Just about the numbers in the first paragraph. So I can see that we've got 10,815 households registered on the Burnley Together database. I think we've seen similar figures to this before, and if my memory serves me correct, I think this is going right back to the beginning, so it includes like early pandemic figures. And then we can see that we've got some April and May figures about phone calls and emails and social media messages. I just think it might be useful for future reports, and if you've got the figures now, if we can have the number of unique users for these more up-to-date time periods. So it'd be good if we could see how many unique users there were in April and May this year. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, 10,815 does include the COVID times, and that would have been for things like people who were getting prescriptions and things like that. I've got you the figures here, so I'll pass those on to you as requested, but you can... so employment was 15, financial 18, food 5,837, fuel 109, housing 43, mental health 11, uniform 6, loneliness and isolation 16, and yeah, that's pretty similar across the board for that. No worries.
Thank you. Any more questions for Councillor Lorna? Yeah, Councillor Whitaker.
It is a question. It's just, would Councillor Lorna be able to provide me with that document afterwards, please, if he could? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll forward the email.
Thank you. If there's no questions, I'll move to observations. Got Councillor Ishtiaq. Right, there's quite a few here. Right, and Councillor Ishtiaq, Councillor Barton, Councillor Haig, and Councillor Spurrell, and then Councillor Birtwistle. Oh, sorry, and Councillor Kazmi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity. It's PL4 136. Is that what it said? 136. Yeah, 136. I want to thank the executive member and his team for installing a cricket pitch on Disraeli Street. All the young people, keen cricketers, are very, very happy, and the ward colleagues are, and the residents. So we felt it was listened to council executive and council put that in place, and they're really happy. Watch out for another Jamie Anderson. Could be from Queensgate again. Is it Jamie? Jimmy Anderson. Burnley resident, wasn't it? Jamie Anderson.
Thank you. Do you want to take a few more,
Can I just reply to
Right,
that one? And
okay.
I just want to thank the councillor, but I would also like to just put on record my thanks to Jimmy Anderson. What a career. I don't know what we're going to do in Burnley to honour him, and I hope he comes back and teaches our kids how to bowl. I hope we do more than name a street after him. I hope we name a stand at Turf Moor potentially after him, whatever we can. What a fantastic role model he's been for our town. Cricket field stand, Howard.
Right, and I've got Councillor Barton, and then Councillor Haig, and then Councillor Spurrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both of my observations relate to page 140, the PE4 downtown. It's very clear that telephone communication remains a priority for our most vulnerable residents, pushing on for 10 times the amount of digital messages that were received. So it just emphasises how important it is that we keep that at the forefront of our mind when we are making decisions that affect how we communicate with our residents. And secondly, you highlighted the mental health at the outset. I was very glad to see that it featured as part of the King's speech today, but we also need to recognise, and which I'm sure we all know this very, very well in here, that firstly, mental health needs to be a proactive response, not reactive. By the time people are seeking help, the problem is already well embedded. Very often it's for issues that are beyond their control. The amount of people on antidepressants, for example, purely because their income and their outgoings do not fit together, that's not a mental health problem, that's a society problem that we have created in people's lives. And also to recognise that we probably shouldn't separate mental and physical health out the same way that we do. Mental health problems cause physical health problems cause mental health problems, and very often there's very little in between. Health problems are health problems.
Well, thank you, Councillor Barton, and well said. What I'd also like to see is a pilot with Burnley Leisure for those who have depression and those who are feeling lonely, to maybe go on park walks around and chat. So I'll be putting that forward to the Burnley Together Steering Group, the ICB, the GPs, and I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Haig and then Councillor Spurrell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My observation is also page 139, PE4, just on the poor determinants of health. You mentioned the mental health waiting list being 9 months. I just wanted to, again, shout out our voluntary sector that's lesser mentioned, and my ex-colleagues at Lancashire Women that have a lovely new centre in the town centre. Again, mental health waiting lists are high, but that exists as a service. Despite the name, does help men and women. So if there's anybody in the borough who needs mental health support, that voluntary service is there and brilliant. And I'm biased because I used to work there. Thanks.
You want to take the next one? Councillor Spurrell?
Yeah,
I hope I
page
pronounced
one.
your name right.
Yeah, no, it's. Listen,
Thank you.
Nobody ever gets my name right, I don't mind.
Right, okay.
Page 140, P4. I were exceptionally pleased to hear you talk about falls and health amongst town. My observation is this town in East Lancs used to have an award-winning falls service, which was absolutely amazing and prevented patients from having long lies and prevented them from going to hospital when not required to go. During the last 14 years, we know that the Tory government absolutely decimated the NHS. So what I ask is, when you do go back to the ICBs, the commissioners and all these people, we talk about solutions we've had historically that work, and that does involve amazing work of volunteers, and that we try to push that forward as an agenda for our elderly residents, because there is no need for these people to go to hospital if the services were there in the first place.
Thank you for your observation. And I was on a call with members of the ICB and Blackburn Hospital today, and they are putting together some really robust planning. And I'm really pleased that Burnley is going to be the first district to be involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Birtwistle and then Councillor Whitaker and McGowan.
Thank you. It's page 135, PL3, regarding the investment in the homes over the next few years. We are, I guess, fortunate to have a housing minister, the Lord Khan of Burnley. Now he has the position now where he can deliver to the people of Burnley what he's promised them for very many years. So could I make the suggestion to the executive member, along with the council leader and chief officer, that they invite the Lord Khan to Burnley to impress
Councillor
on him
Birtwistle,
the
that would be a
importance.
question and not an observation.
It's an observation.
No, you're asking, so that's a question. Unless I
Could I suggest
don't
it
understand
would be a
English.
good idea if the Lord Khan came to Burnley and met with our executive member and our council leader and the chief executive to explain to us how we will be delivering on what he's promised and delivering the money that we desperately need in this town to renew the housing that we've got. Now he has this senior role as a housing minister. Could I therefore look forward to the day, and I hope that the executive member will invite me to the same meeting so I can see the delivery of the promises that he has made to us over many years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Birtwistle. I think you should be the first person on the invite list after all the questions you've asked in this chamber. And I will work with you and Lord Khan or Councillor Townsend or anyone who can help sort out Burnley's housing problem. As a council, we just haven't got enough money to fix every single problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Please order here. And I missed Councillor Kazmi. So can I ask Councillor Kazmi observations?
Yes, please.
We are observations.
Yes, it's an
And then I've got
observation.
you two guys.
Just wanted to thank all the councillors and all the officers that have supported with the multi-use games areas, which is on Abel Street, which is the pitch that is heavily used by residents in my ward. So I would really like to say thank you to the councillors, the officers in that ward, and it's been fantastic, and I've received many emails from residents saying that it's brilliant. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to those observations? No. And I've got Councillor Whitaker and then Councillor McGowan. Observations, please.
Thank you. It's just regarding the Falls team. I totally agree with what Councillor Spools said there. It's a tragedy that particular department was removed by the ELHT leadership team. And I do hope it can come back. It did absolutely fantastic work. I've visited there. I've met that team. I've spoken to them on many occasions. I was highly impressed by them. And it's such a shame that it's no longer there. In fact, I do actually remember them. They actually won a parliamentary award for the work that they did. And I would just like to basically say that I think they should be brought back. And it was an ELHT management decision that actually took that well-used team away. And I do hope they can bring it back, because working in conjunction with what we've mentioned already, that would be a fantastic idea. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is PE2, page 137. I just think we should be incredibly proud of what Jimmy Anderson's done in terms of his sporting achievements and his career. And obviously, as a Burnley lad, I do think that he should be recognised. And I would actually like to see the ball rolling on actually coming up with some sort of recognition for him, whether it's renaming Belvedere Road to the Jimmy Anderson Way or something like that. And if this council could move along with that, that'd be great.
Do you want to
Thank
take
you, Mr.
another
Mayor.
observation before we move on? I've got Councillor Graham and then Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that same note about Jimmy Anderson, I mean, Councillor McGowan, I don't think was a councillor then, but we've already awarded him the freemanship of the town. And we did agree some time ago to name a street after him, but that has never happened. I don't know why. Thank you.
And I've got Councillor Kelly and then Councillor Anwar. Do apologise, Councillor Lorna. Are you okay to take those observations?
I can just say that there is a street being named after our Jimmy, and I don't think that's enough, but we can work on stuff for decades to come because he is one of the most famous sports people in the world. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lorna, having said that, do you still want to have those observations? No?
Yes,
Councillor
sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say in response to, it is an observation, but it is in response to what Councillor Graham said. Yeah, some time ago, there was a decision made that we would do something to recognise the achievements of Jimmy Anderson. And we're in the process of naming a street after him, and that is something that will come out. But I think the reason for that has been, obviously, he was still playing, and getting hold of him or members of his team. But we are getting to that position now where shortly we should be able to make an announcement on that. But it is to recognise what he's achieved and also make Burnley proud as well. So it will be happening soon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any other observations? No, I would like to make one, and it's page 137, PE2, Burnley Leisure celebrates 10 years. I think I was part of that decision to make Burnley Leisure Services go through the third sector and become a charity and so on. And I think the last 10 years they've done wonderful work, and we need to recognise that. The decision we made 10 years ago was a successful decision that we as a council made, and we've seen the fruits of it in terms of the work they've done over the last 10 years. And I want to put that on record in terms of Burnley Leisure and how well they've done for over the last 10 years. Any other observations? Oh, sorry. Councillor Lorna.
To reply to that, the gym membership's through the roof, and we now have appointed a culture lead, and I look forward to Burnley Leisure having culture with a large C for 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and item 8 on the agenda, questions.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. As nobody, item 9 on the agenda, exclusion of the public. As nobody has indicated at this point that they wish to refer to any of the detail in the background documents at agenda 10, I shall draw the meeting to a close. Yeah. Thank you, good night, and have a nice evening.
Members of Council, ladies and gentlemen, please give us standing. Thank you.